Here, Robin, why don't you come on up? I had this wonderful conversation with Robin just a couple weeks ago, and I thought, we just need to try to have that conversation again. So welcome Robin Lee Hatcher. She is a renowned author. She's written gosh, what is it? It's like 1,022 books, right?
Not quite.
I have to get closer to her.
Here we go. I'm working on my 70th.
Okay.
That I should be done with today, and it's not going to happen.
Okay. So what you're saying is this is not productive time for you.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So all right. So you've been doing this for 30 years, and you've got all kinds of awards and recognition. If I was a decent talk show host, I would have a clip, and I'd rattle all these things off. But this is actually just Robin. She's a member of our fellowship here, as is all those authors that are out there. And so, Robin, can you maybe just tell us about what this looks like to be an author? I know there are some that would assume this is obviously the glamorous life. Yes.
Lots assume that. This is my work attire. Jammies. My husband thought I should wear them today. I said, that isn't really how I wanted all of you to think of me. It's bad enough that the neighbors see me dashing to the mailbox at 3 o'clock in the afternoon in my pajamas. But that is a perk. But I can spend many, many hours writing, and when you're on deadline, recently I was at work 4:30 in the morning until 9 o'clock at night, trying to get a book done and get it turned in. Sometimes writing is fun. Most of the time it's work, like any job. The words don't always flow real easy, and you just have to be disciplined and sit down and go ahead and write the bad stuff and hope that the good eventually follows.
Okay, so, all right, so long hours. I mean, I remember looking forward. I personally look forward to being done with school for the simple reason that now I could read whatever I wanted to, whenever I wanted to. And I'm thinking, gosh, being an author, that would be wonderful, because you just get to write whatever you want to, whenever I want to. And what I realize hearing you is, no, this is a job. And so you have deadlines, and just like everything else is a job, but it's something that that's also your passion, which is, of course, a great blessing, to have what you do be also what you love. So how did you get started? Because you've been doing this for 30 years. So how did you get started in this whole path?
I love to read. I went to school first day of first grade to learn to read, and they didn't teach me, so I told my mom I wasn't going back. There was no other reason to go to school than to learn to read. I lived with a reading family. Everybody had books all the time. So I had a real passion for reading. I didn't plan to be a writer. I wasn't one of those people that knew they wanted to write books early on. I wanted to be a movie star. But the career path that I took allows me to eat. I don't have to be on a diet all my life, so I think I made a better choice. But there were a number of things that led up to the start of my career, but the final thing was reading a novel that I wasn't real happy about the ending. And I spoke the infamous words, well, I could do better than that. And we don't know how arrogant that is until we actually start writing. I figure that my first published book probably launched at least a half a dozen or 2 dozen careers by somebody saying, well, if that can get published. Anybody can get published. Sorry for yelling in the mic. So I sat down and started to write my first book, and I did it just for the fun of writing. I wasn't really thinking about publishing. I just wanted to tell a story, that story that had been rolling around in my head for a long time. And of course, God had wired me to want to tell stories. That was also part of the acting stuff that I like to do. So it all came together. And of course, when God got a hold of my career, then that was a whole other phase then again.
Okay, so you were kind of surrounded by books growing up. You see your folks reading and such. Can you just describe what part reading and writing played in your spiritual walk?
Well, my mother and my brother and I, my dad died when I was 3 months old, so it was just my mom and my grandma and my brother. And we were always in church, but we were not part of a fellowship that helped us. It was a social gospel, and we didn't know that we could know Christ. And my mom was 61 when she came to know the Lord. And I was in my 20s. I was a mom, young mom, and I knew everything. And I wouldn't let her tell me anything about her experience. So Mom started praying. She used Catherine Marshall's The Prayer of Relinquishment and prayed it daily. I got saved 13 months later. You can pray your kids into the kingdom. I'm living proof. And because I would not let anybody tell me anything about God. And my mother gave me a copy of the Living Bible when it was published, and I tried to read the Bible before in King James, starting in Genesis, and by the time you get to Leviticus, you're done. And for some reason, I started in Matthew. And over the course of the months, I was slowly reading the New Testament. And then The Hiding Place, the movie The Hiding Place was coming out, and so I decided to read the book, and I read The Hiding Place. And then I decided to have my daughter take piano lessons, and she was 6, and most piano teachers won't take students that young because their hands just don't span enough keys. And the only piano teacher that was available that would take somebody that young just happened to be a Christian. So on Monday nights for half an hour, I would sit in their little apartment next to this bookcase full of books, and I'd just sit there and look at the titles. And this young couple, they were waiting for me. They were waiting for me. And God must have told them, don't say anything. Just hand her a book. And so they handed me Woman to Woman by Eugenia Price. And the next week I went back and they handed me Merlin Carothers' Prison to Praise. And I finished it on Saturday morning, Valentine's Day, 1976. And I got in the shower at 6 o'clock and accepted Christ and was baptized at the same time. And I got in the shower because it was the only place that I could cry on a Saturday morning without disturbing the family, because I knew how much God loved me. And it was an amazing moment. And that's now what I get to do with my own words through my writing. I get to hear from people whose lives have been touched because of something that I've written, and that's pretty amazing.
All right. Thank you, Rob.